most people are entrepreneurial. You don't have to be. I mean, you can find a way to be an outlier in anything that you do if you love what you're doing. When you start to get into a point where you're just looking at the bottom line and then you forget about the purpose behind it, you're never going to be an outlier. If you try to be everything, you're not going to be good at anything. Make your job be your biggest financer of what you're doing. Find the knowledge, find the people who are leaders in the space, find out what they're teaching, find out how they're doing it, and don't be afraid if you want to gain that knowledge to pay them for that knowledge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flow Over Fear. My guest today is Rodman Schley, and to call him a serial entrepreneur would be an understatement. Probably mostly because I don't think that he has started a breakfast focused company yet. Sorry, that was a serial entrepreneurial joke. I tell dad jokes. If you don't know that about me yet, you haven't listened long enough. But back to Rodman. Rodman is an incredible person. He started over 25 companies in his life, and 13 of which he had at the same time. And one thing that's great about Rodman is that over the course of that experience, he has learned to align his purpose and align what he's called his sacred checklist with the businesses that he starts, so that he can align his passions with his vocation and his investment strategy and all that stuff. So he's living a life truly by design. And now he's teaching others to do the same. You may know Rodman from places such as, since he's the creative force behind the PBS series Urban Conversion, where he was an executive producer and a host, and even traveled to the White House for that show. He's the author of multiple books, including his newest book, The Outlier Mindset, which we talk a lot about today, on how to align with your purpose and really develop and embrace the outlier mindset if that's something that you feel that you're drawn to. And so this is a really wide-ranging conversation. We talk a lot, and he joins us from Costa Rica, where he is in one of his vacation rental properties, enjoying the beaches and surfing and his family and all of that good stuff, because he has lived that lifestyle by design. And again, he's teaching others to do the same. He's going to teach us a thing or two today. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. We'll get right into it. Enjoy. Rodman Schley, what's happening, man? Thanks for being here on the Flow Over Fear podcast. Glad to have you, man.
I appreciate it. So good to be here. And, we just learned off air that you and I actually live very close to one another.
Yes.
So you can have such good energy all combined in one place.
Right. I know. Yeah. Denver. I mean, it is the mecca for really, really awesome people. I mean, no offense to everywhere else in the world, but, just saying. And we were talking, we should have been in person for these interviews, because I was on your show and we were just doing it virtually, not knowing we were right down the street.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's great to be here. I'm so excited to be on your show this time. And I'm sure we're going to have some really good information for your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, this is one of those things where, if you've ever heard of the tyranny of choice, we have so many directions we can take this conversation. You are a CEO of multiple companies. You have launched more than 25 businesses in your career. You're in media. You've launched a successful show where you were the host and the executive producer called Urban Conversion on PBS. If you haven't heard of it, it's an incredible award-winning show. You're the author of multiple books, and you're in Costa Rica right now, living a lifestyle by design. So people, if you hear people surfing in the background or splashing in the water and all that stuff, it's because Rodman is living his best life while doing this interview. But I think just starting out now, just, kind of going back in time, I'd love for the listeners to hear a little bit about you, where you came from, and how you came to be the Rodman that's sitting here today.
Well, for me, it's humble beginnings. I grew up in small town Nebraska, central Nebraska. We really didn't grow up with a lot of money. We had a lot of love in our household, but we didn't, have a lot of financial support. So my dad was an educator, and educators just, they just don't make that terribly much money for all the good they put into the world. So we kind of did what we could to get by. And, when watching my dad and watching how they were doing things, I knew that I wanted to do something different in life, right? And so for me, my first taste of entrepreneurship, I love entrepreneurship. It's been my entire life. It's who I am. It's what I'm about. You mentioned those 25 companies. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's too many. Don't do that. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't do that.
Right.
But when I was 12 years old, I was walking the fields in Nebraska, and my dad had me cutting these weeds called thistle. And you'd have to cut them down because the county didn't want them there. They would populate and overtake fields. And $3.10 an hour, I'd get up at 5 in the morning. I'd be walking the fields and I'd be cutting these thistle. And I hated it. And my dad said, well, that's fine. You could not like it, but find something else to do, and then you can quit. So I literally went out and I took a rubber car mat, those old rubber car mats, cut out a stencil in a rectangle and some numbers. And I went door to door offering people to paint their addresses on their curbs
Oh,
for
wow.
$5 a pop, right?
Yeah.
Just going door to door. So I started doing about 4 to 5 of those an hour. So I was getting 20 to $25 an hour. I went from $3.10 an hour by working for somebody else to making $20 to $25 an hour when I was 12. And at that point, my dad was like, hey, maybe you could take me on your staff for a while for the summer job.
Right.
But it was my first taste of entrepreneurship. It was one of those things where it's like, I don't want to do anything else. I want to create my own way. I want to create my own journey. I want to create my own wages. I want to dictate when I get up, when I go to bed, how I do things. That's how entrepreneurship came to me at a really early age.
That's incredible. And you grew up kind of adopting this outlier mindset, and that's the name of the new book that's coming out, and the principles around that you've developed. Was that really your first experience, and is that a necessary experience for anybody that's looking into that entrepreneurial or growth minded lifestyle? Is it to really have to do something on your own, to go out and do something independently? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so necessarily. I mean, an outlier, if you think about the bell curve, in life, we got this great bell curve, and most of us sit in the middle of that bell curve, right? You've got your left side outliers who are, they're doing things they shouldn't be doing and they're getting into trouble. But then there's the right side. And this is not a political left and a political right, but the outlier left and the outlier right. And so you've got the people who are on the right who are just different. They're thinking different. They're doing different. They're excelling because they accept that they're different. They love who they are. They love what they do. But not everybody's got to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be out there and say, oh, I'm going to go do my own thing and I can be an outlier. There are so many people that are brilliant. Say the person, I want to cure cancer. And that's my purpose in life. I want to get up. I want to cure cancer. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to save lives. Well, I'm probably not going to go start a cancer lab and start doing work. I'm probably going to go find a place with really good financial support and really good teams so that I can do my life work. Those people are also outliers. Their path is just a little bit different than maybe an entrepreneur. Now, most people are entrepreneurial, but you don't have to be. I mean, you can find a way to be an outlier in anything that you do if you love what you're doing.
Yeah. So the key is really just finding that passion and aligning your actions with the passion that you're driven to pursue as a starting point. Is that right?
I'm 100% right.
Good.
I mean, the thing about it is like, there's so many people who are going through life, getting up, they're hitting the alarm clock in the morning, they're, getting out of bed, they're going and doing something they don't like to do for the entire day. 8 to 10 hours of their day are spent doing things they don't want to be doing. They come home, they spend some time with their family, they rest, they get up and they do the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes it's hard to break out of that, right? It's hard to break out of those grooves that you're in or those patterns that you're in. But really the most important thing is getting up one day and going, what's important to me? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want to be doing? What lights me up? What gets me out of bed in the morning and really excites me? Because you're not, if you want to be average, keep doing things that you don't really want to be doing. Because that's the majority of people, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be exceptional, if you want to be an outlier, if you want to accept being different, which is awesome to be different, then that's when you got to align with that purpose and that passion. Because if you don't start there on square one, you're dead in the water right out of the gates.
So when you were painting people's addresses on the curb, I couldn't imagine that's necessarily the passion for you necessarily, but it did ignite that entrepreneurial spark, right? What was the evolution from there in terms of learning how to adopt that mindset? I'm sure there was a lot of failure in there, a lot of struggle, challenge.
100%. 100%. I got so many people that come up to me, and you think about all those companies and all those businesses. I have so many people come up and say, how is it that you were successful at everything you did? I'm like, you are delusional, right? I was really good at some things that hit it out of the park, and I had plenty of things that didn't work out for me. And that's okay, because that's where you learn. But at the same time, I really didn't understand the importance of purpose until I was in my 40s, until I had 13 companies going at one time. Ridiculous. It was the rich dad, poor dad philosophy of I'm going to go and start companies. I'm going to get this passive income. I'm going to put the right people in the right places. And the problem with that is I started putting profits before purpose. So I'd look at a company and go, well, this is going to kick out great profit. This is going to really make me some good money, I didn't really care much about what the company was or the business was, right? And,
Yeah.
I had a time where I was opening up all these pizza franchises. They were, and you probably know them. There's probably one up in your neighborhood that I used to own called Marco's Pizza.
Oh
And,
yeah.
my brother-in-law was running the Marcos for me. So I wasn't in the day to day, but I was always getting sucked into it. I was always getting sucked
Hmm.
in, but it just didn't align with me. It didn't align with who I was. It aligned with him, which was awesome. And it was a pleasure to be able to help him. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is when you start to get into a point where you're just looking at the bottom line and going, how much can I make? How much can I make? And then you forget about the purpose behind it. You're never going to be an outlier. You're never
Yeah.
going to be as good. You can't because you can't care about it enough to want to be an outlier in that profession or maybe with that business.
Yeah. Did you learn that the hard way as far as knowing I mean, obviously you went into that world of like trying to make profit before purpose, but what was that lesson? How was that lesson learned over time?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason I wrote the book.
Hmm.
For me, it's trying to help people avoid what I did. And because it took a long time, I had those 13 companies going, a lot of great things going on. But unfortunately, I kind of hit a breaking point where I just couldn't continue getting up every day and doing something I wasn't enjoying and loving. And, something that really resonated with me and made me feel good about what I was putting into the world. So I had to go back and I had to unweave that web, if you will. So I had to
Hmm.
go in and start taking the companies apart. So it's about a 5 to 7 year process for me
Wow.
to just
Wow.
take everything that I had built and start selling, minimizing until I got things down really focused into the things that I really liked that
Yeah.
moved me upstairs here, that made me feel really good about what I was doing. So it was a tough lesson. And I was probably, I'd say I was probably in my early 40s. I'm about 55 right now. And that lesson, though, it was a 5 to 7 year lesson of just a
Hmm.
lot of painfulness. But when I got through it to the other side, that's why when I wrote the Outlier Mindset, it was more about what can I do to make sure that people don't make that same mistake? How can I save people 5 to 7 years
Yeah.
by not making
Yeah.
that same
Could,
mistake?
yeah. Could you give us a taste of what those 25 companies were, or those 13 companies at that time were? Like, I just want to paint a picture of like how that world might have looked for you at that time of
Yeah, no,
managing all these
we had
things.
quite a few of the pizza franchises
Hmm.
all throughout. We had the state rights for the state of Colorado for that pizza franchise, so we had a lot of those. Those were a little bit more of the higher maintenance, and it just again not very well aligned. I had my
Sure.
production company, I had my real estate investment company, I had a commercial valuation company that ended up getting acquired in 2016. I had a national poker tour
Oh,
that got
wow.
acquired by the World Poker Tour back in 2017. And I could go on and on. I mean, and some of these I really liked and enjoyed, but there's other of them that just kind of ate me alive inside.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
there's nothing worse than really doing a lot of things that you don't want to be doing during your days.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that switch. How we're finding that alignment to your purpose, which I know is that important first step to developing that mindset you're talking about. What does that look like as far as how do you find your purpose for those that might be just maybe not knowing where they want to go?
Yeah, for those types of people who are sitting there going, who am I? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? I mean, the path, there's no direct path, right? I mean, it's going to come number one down to them. It's going to first start with them sitting down with themselves and really being honest, like really being honest of what gets them excited and what gets them up in the morning. I've got what I developed that I call the sacred check boxes. And this isn't in the book, but this is something I use personally when I sit down because I had all these different things going on. And so I had to sit down and go, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What do I want to be doing? And, this life by design concept. If I'm going to
Hmm.
design my own life, I'm going to dictate what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. What is this going to look like? And so for me, it was a matter of coming down with my check boxes. Now, I came out with 4 check boxes in my life, and they were I wanted to travel, I wanted to invest, I wanted to teach, and then I wanted to inspire people to do what they want to be doing in life, right? And then for me, if anything came into my life that didn't check one of those check boxes, entrepreneurs have a horrible time saying no.
Yeah.
We want to do
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Is there an
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
opportunity? I want to do it, right? And that's the worst thing that we can do as an entrepreneur. So if I have my 4 check boxes and I'm sitting there trying to figure out if I want to do something, if it doesn't check my checkbox, it's out. I don't
Yeah.
even consider it. I say no and I walk away. And that's kept my world very small and very in tune with what I want to be doing.
Yeah, that's such a challenge too for entrepreneurs or achievers to have the self-discipline to not check all the boxes. I know I
Yeah.
struggle with that all of the time. I get that shiny object syndrome. I'm always looking for the next bigger thing or more exciting thing. Um, how do you avoid that? How do you prevent yourself from checking all of the boxes on that passion part? I mean, because that's the other side of it. One side is like, I don't know what I want to be, and the other side is I want to be everything. How do you
Yeah.
avoid that?
If you try to be everything, you're not going to be good at anything.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like you can be very, very like when I had all those companies, I was very average at all of them. We did well on a lot of them still. We came out good on a lot of them. But at the same time, what could have I done if I would have focused those energies on really what I wanted to be doing and how I wanted to be doing it, right? So for
Right.
me to be
Right.
able to go in and then have those check boxes, it became very easy to say no. It's so much easier to say no because I look at the opportunities that I lost by saying yes way too much.
Yeah. 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 So your priorities, if you will, from those checkboxes came out: travel, invest, teach. And from that, you can identify really. So from that passion, you can identify the directions more clearly on where you wanted to go. What does that look like today? As far as I'm gonna fast forward, and then I'll probably go back. So I'm jumping all over.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know, like, where you took us from the extreme of running 13 businesses at once and pulling your hair out, but like where now you're in Costa Rica, living a lifestyle by design. And what does that look like to you on the other side of that?
Well, 100%. So there's 4 check boxes, right? So number 1 and 2, I want to invest and I want to travel. So I started a private equity fund that invests in vacation properties. And so what do? We go and we invest in vacation properties like this one I'm sitting down here in Costa Rica. So I get my travel and I get to invest both. It just combines so nicely with what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And then of course, teaching I do through books and I do through, I've got a mastermind on buying short-term vacation properties so that I can teach people how to do it. And then also that inspirational part. It's in the books. It's in the knowledge. It's taking all these things, right? It's taking all of our collection of mistakes, our collection of knowledge, our collection of everything that we've gotten in all the times that we've tripped and fell flat on our faces, and then giving that back down to that person who's maybe 20 years, 30 years younger going, how can you help me reduce my learning curve? And I call that evolving exponentially. How can I save you that 5 to 7 years where I tripped up, or even 10 years, or maybe 15 years, so that you have that much more time and that much more of a head start to find that greatness?
Yeah. So So I love that idea, because all of this stuff, when you just read it out loud, like, talking about you're the CEO of, this real estate investment fund, and you're in this media world and you're doing all these different things. It looks like it's a lot. Like, it looks like you would be pulling your hair out, but all of that is aligned with these sacred check boxes that you mentioned, which makes it so that at least you're still aligned with that purpose, even though it seems like you're doing a lot of things. I don't know if I'm capturing that
totally
correctly,
aligned,
but yeah.
and it doesn't feel like work. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like there are still things, and it's, you're always going to trip up, hit your toe on the hurdle every once in a while and tumble and brush back off and get going. That's just life. That's what's so great about life, is we can learn from that. But at the same time, everything that I'm doing, every time I'm getting up, when I'm working in that, like I said, I'm down here working now. You and I are on, we're checking one of my sacred check boxes right now by me having an opportunity to teach the things that I know. And yet I'm sitting in a place that I love, in a property that we own down here in Costa Rica with a bunch of other investors. And it's good. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. How important is the community aspect to all of that? I mean, because, you talk about, okay, you found your purpose and alignment. I'm curious, and I don't know if this is part of the principles or not, but just the idea of who you know and who your mentors are and who you're connected with. What level of
Yeah,
importance does that have in there?
a lot. I mean, you've got to consider your tribe, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. I mean, you can look at study after study, and they'll take a look at people who even geographically move. Say you're somebody who lives in a liberal state, and you move into a state that's primarily conservative. You see that person generally start to go over to that conservative nature. And that's just a example. I mean, the people that surround you are so critical. Taking politics way out of it, because that was just one of those things we probably shouldn't even be talking about right now because everything's so heated. But
Right.
the example's the same whether you're going from an area, that, or let's say a group of people. Let's say you've got a group of people who you hang around with, and they're doing one set of things, but that's not who you are. You want to find people who have those similar interests, those common ideas, those common thoughts. I love working with just entrepreneurs in general. So when I get around those entrepreneur type people, they light me up. They light
Yeah.
me up because I can sit in a room with them. We can get excited. I might not have anything to do with what they're doing business wise, but I understand what they're trying to do as an entrepreneur, and I can lift them up. But I also tell people that's why when you're looking for that group, when you're looking for your tribe, it's just as important that you're always leading with service.
Hmm.
You always want to lead. You don't want to be going in to take. You want to be going in to give. You will get plenty, and you'll get so many rewards in return. But you don't want to go in even with the expectation, well, I'm going to give so I can get. You just need
Yeah.
to give to give. You go in there and you give, and you give the most fruitful relationships that I have. And I've got some great, really awesome relationships with some really, really big players. And the reason is not because I said, hey, what can this guy do for me?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what can I do to serve? What can I do to lift up his purpose or her purpose? And then if there's room, that same person is going to be looking at you going, well, I'd love to help Rodman out. Rodman
Yeah.
really helped me out with this. I'm gonna reciprocate. And that's where the friendships come in. That's where the trust comes in. That's where you get a circle of people who are all doing the same thing, and that's feeding one another and lifting one another up.
So true. I love that. Connection is the greatest currency on earth. I mean, as far as just like being able to build that wealth of connection, just to be connected. And I love that you put it that you're leading with service without expectation of anything in return. Because that is like the true currency. You're giving that. And ultimately it will come back to you in abundance if you're giving it authentically and fully.
Yes.
I love that part of it. You mentioned or we talked offline a little bit about the aligning with purpose, and also as part of that, as part of kind of building into that outlier mindset, having your health and your money, in the right spot too. Can you talk a little bit on that, on what it means to get your health in the right place, and how that is also influenced by the financial aspect?
Yeah, you got to be the complete package. I mean, entrepreneurs, the thing about it is people don't understand the grind. It's a grind.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of
Yes.
hard work. People say, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur so I can work less. Well, that's not real. That's not how that's going to be. It's going to be
Hmm.
the opposite. You're probably going to be working more hours. You're going to be working harder. So I always tell people after you've got that purpose lined up, the next thing that you got to do is you got to get your mindset right. You got to make
Yeah.
sure that what you're doing upstairs, you got to put it together upstairs because you got to be ready for the long haul. You got to be mentally ready for the challenges that you're going to face when you're going through this whole system. Because again, it's going to be challenge after challenge. Then once you've got that mindset right, so you've got to physically be ready. You got to
Hmm.
be physically fit and you got to be physically ready to go because again, it's one of those things. If you're eating unhealthy, if you're not getting out, I mean, my most brilliant ideas, I'm just going to call them brilliant, even though that might sound a little arrogant, but
You got to own it.
my best ideas come when I'm out walking. When I do
Yes.
I'll go do a 4 mile walk and I'll come back and oh my gosh, I am clicking. I've got all these things in line. It's like because you take that time for yourself. If you are just going to go and grind and grind and grind, you're going to put yourself in a lot of trouble. You're not going to be really good. You're not going to be as efficient. You're not going to have your mind working as well as it should. So it's really important to make sure that you're physically taking care of yourself and that you're physically, staying healthy. How you
Yeah.
feed your body, what you're eating, all this stuff is just so important. And then you got to have your money right. So many people, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make, is they come in and they say, I'm going to quit that job. I'm going to put my shingle out. I'm going to open my business and I'm going to make all kinds of money. And then they don't have the savings in place. They don't have that that know-how that they can make that transition from working for somebody into supporting themselves as a business. Businesses take time. They take money. The worst thing that people can do is go in there, start a business, get really going, get moving forward, and then 2 months later find out they're not making enough money to support themselves, and they stop. And then they said, I failed. Well, you didn't fail. You just didn't have enough money to really, to really make that success happen, or to get to that place. Success could have been right around that next corner, but you didn't have the money and the finances in place to really make sure that you were going to be sustainable.
Hey everyone, I interrupt this program to introduce you to a powerful tool that will help you gain clarity on your vision and accelerate your growth and achievement. If you're listening to this show, it is likely that you have an exciting vision for your life. But the problem is that we often get caught up in the day-to-day. We get distracted, we face uncertainty, overwhelm, and self-doubt. And as a result, the gap between where you are and where you want to be seems insurmountable. And that's why I created a framework for how you can turn your vision into strategic, disciplined action that will accelerate your results in the next 90 days. I call it the Vision Reflection Retreat. It is a 2-day solo excursion designed to reignite passion and adventure into your busy life and realign your focus toward your why. This is the very same framework that I use every 90 days to reflect on my own life and my vision and set my goals for the next quarter. And it has been a game changer. And the good news is that I'm giving away this Vision Reflection Retreat guidebook for free when you sign up for my newsletter. Simply go to flowoverfear.com/retreat and download your free guide and enjoy the journey.
Yeah. So what's your advice there as far as like what should people be looking for if they want to make that leap from whatever role they might be in right now, W-2 job, not necessarily fulfilled, but they want to move into that entrepreneurial leap. What should they have in place? Like what any suggestions there?
Yeah, well, the first thing is if you've got a good bankroll, if you sat there and put away and you've got good savings, and you can sit there and allocate and go, you know what, I can go for 6 months without having to earn a dime, or I can go 12 months without having to earn a dime, and I really want to do this, and you are willing to take that risk, and you sat there and you've done all the work to go, okay, how can I reduce my risk? How can I make sure that I've got the best chance of success? Then I'd say that's okay. Then you can maybe leave that job, go all in, do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you're not there, if you're not in that place, what I tell people is that you need to start that as your side hustle. So make your job be your biggest financer of what you're doing. Because, it's one of those things. It's like you can go and pull some money in or pull loans in, or if you start as a side hustle, and I would say make that side hustle do so well that it makes you quit that job. Right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that maybe your side hustle's here and your job's here, and then slowly your side hustle. And once your side hustle takes over that, boom, that's when you can get out of that rat race, if you will, or get out of that routine that you don't want to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's wise. And it sounds like obviously keeping yourself healthy while doing it is important. What routines do you have right now to keep yourself healthy? I mean, you look great. You got a surfboard behind you. Are you going surfing in the morning out there in Costa Rica?
We've done a little bit of surfing out here for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not what keeps me healthy. Believe me, that's more falling and swimming for my life.
Sure.
I am not what you would call a good surfer, but I love doing it. So that's all that really matters. It's one of those things where like I'm kind of an early riser, so I get up early in the morning. I like to do a 4-mile walk each day. And I was doing weights for a while until I had a little bit of an injury. I'm anxious to get back on that. I'd actually started, it's funny, I started 75 hard back a while ago. I don't know if you're familiar with 75 hard. It's a 75-day straight program. Pretty tough, but I hit day 75 and I was like, well, I'm going to go day 76 and I'm going to go day 77. I ended up doing 75 hard for 537 days in a row.
Wow. Holy
which
cow.
was insane. And I was so bummed when my streak broke. And to be honest, it's been hard to get back on once you do a streak like that, it's really hard to get on another big streak. but the thing about it
Yeah.
is, more than anything, it's like find something that feels good to you, feel something that feels right for you in terms of what you like to be doing. I play ice hockey,
Oh,
once
wow.
a week. I'm not any good at it, but again, it's one of those things where I'd never ice skated. I'm from Nebraska. We don't have ice. We don't have rinks. We don't have hockey stuff.
Right.
But my business partner talked me into starting to play hockey when I was 35, and I've
Really?
loved it ever since. So I've played the last 20 years playing ice hockey. It's the best workout in the world, but I love doing it.
That's so
Find
cool.
what you
That's
love.
so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. I love that story because, I think with ice hockey in particular, I've become a fan of that show, Shoresy. I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of an obscure Hulu show, but it's all about really like a amateur hockey team. But it was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Yeah, but I'm also 45. I've never ice skated before, and you think that mindset gets into you, but I started triathlon when I was 33. It's never too late to like start something that you never thought you would enjoy.
100%. I just
Yeah.
started surfing about a year ago. I
Oh,
mean, that's the
really?
thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's just like if you find something you enjoy, and if you don't like it, don't do it. As
Yeah.
easy as that. But if
Yeah.
you find that thing that you like doing, that's going to really, and it'll help you mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Making sure
Yeah.
that you're really taking care of your health helps you both upstairs and throughout your entire system. So
Yeah.
that's one of those things where I tell people, it's like whatever you need to do. And sometimes, like I said, it's hard to get back into those routines. After my streak started, I've been very sporadic. So I go, 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 go. And then all of a sudden I kind of hold back a little bit. And then I go, 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 go. And I still haven't gotten to that one big streak like I had before. But I'm
Yeah.
still making sure that I'm getting myself, that energy by making sure I'm getting those walks in, lifting, those kind of things.
Yeah. And I also, want to acknowledge too, the idea of rest or not really, just like the recovery side of it. Cause you mentioned going out for walks. It's not really high intensity stuff, but that's where your mind's thinking in those times where you're actually walking away from work and not in it, not grinding as you put it. And
Yeah.
I think that sounds like an important part of it too.
100%. And I usually, in my routine, when I do my walk, I listen to a podcast. So I'll find something that's 45 minutes to an hour. I'll put it in. I'll start doing my walk. And again, just kind of like, that's not me thinking at that point. That's me hearing and hearing and hearing. And as that idea comes in, or that it stimulates some thought. But there are so many brilliant people out there teaching so many brilliant things. To
Yes.
be able to combine that exercise with learning is a no-brainer. I mean, I can sit there and I can really tune out what I was doing back at my computer, put in somebody else, put in some brilliant work of other people who are putting so much good things into the world. And then I come back and I'm like, maybe I've got 2 to 3 new things that I'm going, wow, so glad I took that walk.
Yeah.
What came to me there was so brilliant. And it was because of this other person. It was because of this other thought leader who really had some good advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And yeah, so we spent a little time talking about, aligning with the purpose and health, getting money right as kind of the precursors to this outlier mindset, which is really, you have a podcast that's the outlier mindset. You talk with other individuals that are entrepreneurs and high achievers. You speak on outlier mindset. Now you have a book called The Outlier Mindset. And you have a series of principles or tenets that you talk about in that. I'd love to hear more about what that is. What is the outlier mindset? And let's get into some of the tenets.
Yeah. I mean, well, the first thing, we always talk about is, of course, you got to find that purpose. And that's not a tenet, but I always want to remind people, start with purpose. Start with purpose, because, that is, if you are coming out of the gates and not being aligned with your purpose and you want to try to do something as an outlier, it's going to be really, really tough. It just doesn't align. Right.
Sure.
But the next thing is you got to do the work. I mean, so there's so many people, and and I'm not saying work yourself to death. There's a big difference, but there are so many people who are putting things into the universe. I'm going to put this into the universe, and the universe is going to come and it's just going to bring it to me. It's like,
yes,
great, put it into the universe. That's fine. I love it. Go for it. But you got to do the work behind it, because the universe isn't just going to come and give that to you. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to put the things into place. You're going to have to do some of the things we talked about earlier, which is another tenet, which is, surrounding yourself with the right people, getting that tribe lined up. Um,
Hmm.
who you surround yourself with is so important.
Yeah.
And you get yourself with a bunch of negative people. You get yourself with people who are stealing your energy instead of feeding you energy. And that's where you're going to end up. You're going to end up the same place those people are, right? Go to a
Hmm.
place where people are meeting you where you are, or go to a place where people are up here and lifting you even higher. Those are the people that you want in your life. So that's a big part of one of the tenets is just making sure that your tribe is your tribe. Uh, Outliers, they are dreamers. I'm a dreamer. I'm sure you're a
Hmm.
dreamer. They sit there and have big dreams, big ideas, big thoughts. But the big difference is a lot of people take those dreams and those thoughts to the grave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And we talk about regret. And one of the biggest things that I like to feel like I'm solving for is regret, helping
Right.
that
Right.
person so that they're not going to get to the end of that life that they've been living, that hasn't been aligned with who they are. And again, that rinse and repeat day in and day out, doing the things they don't want to be doing. I want to help that person so they're not sitting there on their deathbed at the end of their life going, boy, I wish I would have done this. Wow, I wish I would
Yeah.
have just tried that. I want people to be looking at their kids in the face, and their kids maybe weeping because, they're going to be leaving them in this realm. But having that person be able to look at their kids in the eye and say, if I thought it, I tried it, it didn't all
Hmm.
work out the way that I wanted it to sometimes, but I have no regrets. I
Yeah.
have
Hey,
no regrets.
yeah, it reminds me of that book that what the 5 regrets of the dying, or I don't remember
Mm, yeah.
how many regrets it was, but it was this person who, worked with people that were terminally ill, and she learned about what the biggest regrets that they had, and a lot of them were just regretting not taking the chances,
Mm,
not really taking the chances that they thought they would take because they were afraid at the time, and or that they felt something was inhibiting them. And yeah, it's, you don't want to get to the end point. I just interviewed someone earlier, that talked about how her mother worked really, really hard for all her life, and then all of a sudden, boom, 57 years old, she has dementia, and
mm.
spends the next 10 years um, not doing it. Not to say that her life was full of regret, but at any time we can do that. We need to grab it now and take that by the horn. That's why it's so important what you're putting out with aligning with the purpose, and getting your health and money right, knowing what it is that makes you an outlier, and how to take that and own it, take ownership of it. I love that.
100%. And, my grandfather's the same way. My grandfather's an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. If you remember these old hardware stores, he owned a coast to coast hardware store when I was a kid. And I spent a lot of time with him in that store. And, back in those days, one of the big retailers came into town, the big box retailers. And basically they put him out of business. So my grandfather, there he
Mm.
was, in small town Nebraska, working for somebody for the remainder of his working life. And then
Yeah.
he also got dementia, but he always talked about, I wish I could golf, I wish I could fish, I wish I could travel. And unfortunately, for watching him go through that was such an important lesson for me to say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say these things. I'm not going to say I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. I'm going to do them. And nothing with him. He had to do what he had to do because unfortunately he got thrust into a bad situation. But you never know when you're going to be thrust into a bad situation
Right.
where you
Yeah.
you are in a spot where you can't be doing those things that you want to do. So if you've got that ability and that capability of doing those things now, don't put them off. Do them. Do them now. Do
Yeah.
them while you're healthy. Do them while you're physically fit. Do them while you're able to, because those things might come and go. And then what? You're just going to see
Yeah.
them dissipate.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great piece of advice. And so yeah, we have, and you brought up the community aspect of it again. I think that's that, who you're surrounding yourself with. What other elements are part of that outlier mindset that are that are so important?
Yeah, people need to just accept and love the fact that they are different.
Hmm.
They're different. I mean, because, if you think about school, okay, they tell you how to dress, they tell you where to sit, they tell you how to think, they tell you what to do, they tell you how to treat adults, they tell you how to do everything, but they
Hmm.
don't let you think for your own. And that's kind of why we've got this, not just because of school, but our parents are the same way. You should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor, you should be, I can go on and on and on. So we're told all the time who we should be, how we should dress, how we should ask, how we should talk to people. And then it takes out that one thing that is so amazing in life, and that's being different. And so I always tell people, embrace, find out, why I'm different. Why am I different than others? And love on that and embrace it. And don't be afraid. There's plenty of people in the middle of that bell curve that we keep talking about that are not different. There's plenty of people lumped in there that are accepting that I am just a normal person going through a normal life, doing normal things. But they'd be so much happier if they could just say, no, I'm not that. I'm okay with being out here. I'm okay with being. And by the way, if you're somebody who's in that curve and you just love it, you love in your life, you love where you're at, maybe that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. Maybe that's your outlier space because you are aligned with your purpose and you're loving what you're doing, right? But that's even different. That's different than the majority in that space. So, accept the fact that you're different and just love on who you are and don't be afraid to just always be different. We're trying to replicate. We're trying to be like that person we see on TV. We're trying to be like that business person. We're trying to be you.
Yeah.
Be different.
Yeah.
Be you. And man, that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get the feeling that if people want to be in the middle of that bell curve, which is fine, I imagine they're probably not listening to this podcast. But if you have at least the curiosity of saying, hey, I wonder what it's like to be, why I'm feeling this way or why I think differently than somebody else or why I disagree maybe with my family when they say I should be this or that or something. And I don't want to be put into a box. Maybe those questions are leading you to that outlier side and you should look at how you can embrace yourself authentically. It's great to be self-reflective on that front.
100%.
Yeah. So
one of the other things I tell people.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the other things that I tell people is that you got to be willing to gain knowledge. And I talked about evolving exponentially a little bit earlier. We call it EvolveX in my company. But the thing is like, how can I shorten my learning curves? There are a lot of lessons in life to be learned. There's going to be a lot of hard knocks. There's going to be a lot of everything. But how can I consciously get up and shave time off of my learning curves to get to where I want to get to as an outlier?
Right.
Because a lot of people, we've gone to school and we've had enough education. You need to be a lifelong learner. And, for that, I always like to use the example of my wife who's sitting right over there. So hopefully she does not throw something at me for using her as an example here. But my wife's got this beautiful flower farm in Arvada, Colorado. And, she really had a passion for it. It's something that she loved and that she wanted to do. But she didn't have all the knowledge in the beginning. It's like, okay, now what? How do I do it? How do I start to grow? How do I make sure that I'm going to be able to plant a seed? I'm going to be able to cultivate the seed. I'm going to be able to water it correctly. How am I going to make sure I have the right flowers for the zones that I'm in? There was just so many things that she didn't know. So there was a woman out of Washington who had a course. And I think it was maybe a $2,000 or so course that she took. And it was an exceptional course, but it took probably 5 years off her learning curve. So she traded $2,000 to take 5 years off of a learning curve.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to spend on the knowledge that you need to evolve exponentially. How much is that worth to you to take 5 years off your learning curve? Right?
Yeah.
So I always tell people, find the knowledge, find the people who are leaders in the space, find out what they're teaching, find out how they're doing it. And don't be afraid if you want to gain that knowledge to pay them for that knowledge. Because again, you got to ask yourself, how much is it worth to me to shorten the period of time it takes for me to be successful or to understand or to be living my dream or to be building my life by design? Be willing to spend that money initially so that you can gain the knowledge to shorten how long it's going to take you to really learn and understand what you're going to be doing.
That's such a great point. And honestly, a big mistake I made, and I see a lot of people make early on, is that they just don't want to either spend the money or the time in the communities, finding the people, kind of going back to that community aspect of building it. So they want to do it on their own, and they spend so much time. And to your point earlier, 2 months in, 3 months in, a year in, they give up on it because it's just not as far along as they wanted. Leverage the talent of other people and their knowledge and the knowledge that's out there already to scale up. It's one of the best investments you can make, and it's ultimately an investment in yourself.
100%.
Yeah. So I know that, like, one of the key differentiators that you talk about in your 7 tenets is that if you're on that end of on the right end of the bell curve, that real outlier, you're somebody who already really executes on that thing that you want anyway, right? So if you've already been participating, is that can you expand on that, like how we might already kind of look for evidence in our own lives of execution?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the learning by falling in your face, I mean, that's a big thing in life in general,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they always say that you're best suited to serve the person that you once were in life also. So,
Right.
you have the most valuable lessons inside of you, even before you get started. But then when you start combining that with that outside knowledge and those people who can really help you hone in on those skills or help you take what you're doing to the next level or help you truly understand. I mean, I'm not at the top level. I still seek out outside advice. I still seek out people who are doing great things or who might bring that one idea. It's just like putting that podcast in my ear and doing that walk in the morning.
Yeah.
I get home and I go, wow, why didn't I think of that? Right?
Yeah.
If you are as stubborn to think that you already know everything there is to know, then you're going to be you're going to fall short. Let's just put it that way. You're not going to get as far in life as you could have, because people who put the ego aside, I had a young man who came and did some work for me, and I wanted him to go learn some stuff. I said, hey, I want you to learn how to do this. And he goes, I already know how to do all this. He was 22 years old. And I thought, wow, 22 years old and you already know everything. This is fantastic. But the fact of the matter is like, it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter if you're 22 or if you're 62. Like we know a smidge of knowledge and a smidge of information. And there's so much to be had and so much to be learned. But it's putting the ego aside all the time. I love learning from new people, and I don't care who it is. I'll have something to learn from that 22-year-old. He'll sit there and he'll teach me things that I would have had no idea on. Right.
Right.
There's always something for each one of us. And a lot of times it's hidden in the most rare and random spots in life. So you always got to keep your mind open to the learning.
Yeah. And that's really, I think that's true. And I mean, selfishly, why this, this platform of podcasting is so valuable, because I get to learn from people like yourself or others in every single, session that it is. And I wonder if you find the same in the Outlier Mindset podcast, that you just have these people on, you're building your knowledge, and you're also kind of expanding that knowledge and presenting it to the rest of the world for them to learn. It's a pretty powerful platform.
I mean, what an incredible thing to be able to talk to some of the greatest minds in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
To be able to get on a mic with them and get them on the computer and hear them and talk to them and learn from them and collaborate with them. And, somebody will come on the podcast and, I don't just say, see you later. We usually become friends, then we collaborate. How can we lift each other up, and how can we find more greatness, and how can we be better in life? And I mean, what a blessing to be able to get on here. And, it's just like you said, you came onto my podcast and we had a great conversation. Very incredible. So much good knowledge to take and give down to my listeners. Now I get to come back on with you, and we get to have this second set of dialogue. And then we learn that we're in the same town. So we have an opportunity to continue to lift each other up. And those are the blessings, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that, again, kind of circling back around to the community aspect, that's the beauty of it. That's how I think, that's how I believe that you're helping outliers to scale up, is presenting them with what they are naturally good at, helping them to accept that reality for themselves, and that the beauty of that, helping them to build, to align with their purpose, and then find the communities that can help them to support themselves up in the scale. So I'd love to know, Rodman, like, what is next for you? Like, what are you excited about that's happening in your life, aside from being in Costa Rica and traveling and living authentically with your sacred checklist? What are you excited about?
I'm doing it, man. I mean, like, literally, right now I don't even see a next thing. You know what I mean? Like, so there's so many great things that I have in my life that I'm aligned with. Building these businesses that I'm working on right now that I love and that are aligned with me. And, not an easy go at some of them. I mean, it takes time and it takes energy, but man, it doesn't, it's just such a love, and I enjoy doing it so much. But if you said, what's next? There's not a what's next right now. What's next is I get up every day. I get to continue to, to build my investment community. I get a chance to still teach, and I get a chance to write more books, and I get to talk to guys like you, and I get to go on stages and teach people and to inspire people. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's next. It's just, doing the same thing. It's like taking that life by design. And I think maybe once you start getting that to the place where your life is designed around what you want to be doing and how you want to be doing it, you might get to a point too where it's just like, well, I don't need, doesn't need to be a next thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that your life couldn't change, not that in 5 years, how I think and what my wants are might not shift or change. And I can look at it then. But for now, man, I am content as can be, and I'm just loving life.
That's great. Well, that's a fantastic place to be. And honestly, it's a fantastic, place as a mentor, as yourself, to be, where you are content with your own life. You're already living the dream that other people want for themselves. And I think if anybody that's listening is looking, for that life, and they may be at the beginning stages of understanding their outlier mindset, I would, reach out to Rodman, check out his podcast, The Outlier Mindset, pick up his new book by the same name, Outlier Mindset, and learn more about it. And find those communities that can support you to lift you up. And Rodman, I want to just thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and spending time while you're out on vacation, in Costa Rica with us. Where can people find you? Where can they find the book?
Yeah, they can find the book. Amazon, of course, carries the book. Really easy to go get, The Outlier Mindset. You can find it there. If you want to reach out to me, if you want to connect with me, you can reach out to me on social or my website. Both of them are the same. My social handles are all at GoRodman. And then my website's gorodman.com. So very easy to find. I love it when people reach out to me. I love to hear people's stories, love to hear about what they're doing. And if you have anything that you can teach me, by all means, reach out to me. I love to hear from people who are doing incredible things in life.
Rodman, thank you so much. That's awesome. Yes, please go check out Rodman at gorodman.com and at gorodman on all of the socials. Pick up his new book, The Outlier Mindset, and check out his podcast by the same name. And yeah, Rodman, thanks for being here. I can't wait to connect with you when you're back in Denver and we can hang out. And everyone else out there, thank you so much for joining us this time. We will see you again soon.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Flow Over Fear. If you are liking this show, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be first to know when I drop a new episode, including interviews or trainings or dad jokes. That's right, dad jokes. Add a little levity to your life. And if you liked this episode in particular and you think somebody can get something from it, please share it with a friend, and that way we'll spread the message together. Thanks again for joining me today. We'll see you next time.